And there you have it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen. Lend us your ears. Whether it's down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you for tuning in tonight to the George Espenlaub Show. There is our good friend Cassandra from way down there in Arkansas. Cassandra, it's so good to have you. It's so good to see you one more time. And give my love to Mom and to all the people there. Tell John to jump on here if he's around. So, Mr. Ed, we got you in your car mobile. How you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can too.
Oh, can you? It's hopefully it's not too much of an echo or anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you're all right. You're just a
Sounds
little
good.
off center.
Well, we'll have some good Twitter something or something. If something were to happen to me, I can just blame you and sue you.
Yeah, you're a little off center of the screen, but of course you're a little off center in real life too. Oh, there you go. There you go. See. Now if we could just balance you out that way, we'd be all right. And then and then one of our favorite people, Dr. Teresa Sanders from down there.
Thank you.
It's good to have you, Teresa.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I want to start this out by doing something. So just give me a couple minutes here. I put this up. Well, let me put this up here, and then I'll explain it to you. Run this up there. Okay. I put this up the last time that Teresa was with us. Not this particular one, but another one. It was written by a man by the name of Garrett Geer, Geer. And I was told that Sal Alinsky was not attributed to this. And so I went and I done some research and checked things out, and I read all about Mr. Alinsky and so on and so forth, and went and read some other things. But this is what I come to a conclusion with, and this right here will really help us out. This is what the writer, he put this article up there, and this is what he said. He gave it 3 levels of analysis. And this is what he said. This is something person A, which was Garrett Geer, wrote about the purported plain statesman of person B, who was Sal Alinsky. So the first thing we address is the fact that something person A said, person B said. This is something because we need to know who both of these people are. Then he went on. We couldn't find anything about a Garrett Geer who wrote this. There are several Garrett Geers identified in Google search, but other than the links that are to this article, none of them tell any useful possible Garrett Geer who wrote this. Saul Alinsky, on the other hand, there's a lot about him. He was born in Chicago during the Great Depression. He became concerned about workers in the United States, and so he dropped out of graduate school and he became a community organizer, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot that says that. He wrote and published Reveille for Radicals and Roles for Radicals, and I was in both of those articles to provide ideas and advice for community organizers who sought to produce social change, particularly for the so-called working class. He was not a communist in the strictest sense, but he did recognize that without more power for the workers, capitalism could and probably would continuously redistribute wealth into the hands of the wealthiest. The second analysis, the level of analysis, is looking at what's actually said in that document. The author, Garrett Geer, lists roles purportedly from Saul Alinsky. The first problem is Geer did not cite any sources. And because if we had sources, we would have known that Saul Alinsky was not a communist in the strictest sense, but he did recognize that without more power for the workers, capitalism could and probably would continuously redistribute wealth into the hands of the wealthiest. The second analysis is looking at what's actually said in that document. The author, Garrett Geer, lists roles purportedly from Saul Alinsky. The first problem is Geer did not cite any sources. that we could look up, we could verify that Saul Alinsky actually stated these so-called rules. Whether or not sources are cited is always very important, as we all know. So, the third level of analysis is this, and this is where I drew my conclusion. This level involves simply looking at the statements themselves and deciding what, if any merit or validity they have, as well as where they might actually have come from. Gear claims that they are Lenin derived, communist strategies implemented by Stalin. And unfortunately, Stalinism is not and was not common, so that part is not valid. But there is some possibility that these rules might well be something used by autocrats and dictators. I want to say that again. There's some possibility that these rules might well be used by autocrats and dictators. And the man said this in his final word. In the end, no matter how valid the assertions are in this set of rules, whether any of us agrees or disagrees with them in themselves is a matter of personal judgment. We think they might well be a strategy used by a propagandist supporting an autocratic government. So, there you have it. It is not attributed to Mr. Alinsky, but nonetheless, somebody wrote that puppy, and those 8 statements are right on. So that's where we stand with that. All right. Thank you guys for your time, so I can stumble and fall through that. Can't see half the time what I'm reading anyways. So, Ed, what do you got for the agenda tonight?
Well, the agenda is, what are we going to do with the situation in the school? Because let me tell you something. I'm finding out, I've been asking, I won't say at the school I'm at, but I will say that at a school that I'm well aware of, they are having a real problem with, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said the schools are having problems with those edibles. And what does Dr. Sanders have to say about that, the edibles?
Edibles as they relate to school. I haven't heard any of the schools in our area having particular problems with that, although I'm sure that edibles are present on campuses, middle school, high school, maybe even elementary school. But I haven't heard anything in the news, nor have I heard any of my teacher friends or colleagues or any of the boards, the local groups that I'm in. No one has said anything about any problems with edibles. However, it wouldn't surprise me if edibles were on school campuses. I mean, why wouldn't they be?
Yeah, that's it's becoming a real problem. And of course, it is, the kids are not at our school, but at a lot of these public schools, it's a real problem. The kids obviously are high and fighting over the drugs and so on and so forth, and selling them at school. But what's interesting is that right now in these in the public schools, I had a student and at our private school, and I asked him. I said, why don't you? You seem like you're a little you're not having a good time lately. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, he went to one of the best suburban schools around, very good school in Central Ohio. Not going to say their name, but he said, well, when we go to the public school, we can do whatever we want. And so I said, well, that's a very interesting reason to be unhappy. But he says, we want to cut class, or if we want to not do this or not do that, there's no accountability. So that's where we're at. School
I think so. When we talk about the edibles being in school, let's wind that back to what you're saying right now. That is really the foundational problem that would allow edibles and drinkables and sniffables and snortables and all other kind of ables to be allowed in a school setting, because there is it's almost lawless on a lot of campuses. It's almost it's like anarchy. And I'm talking about local campuses around here. I'm talking about what my teacher friends and colleagues have told me that's going on around here. In at least in North Texas, um, several school districts have the no suspend policy, so they're not sending kids home for any reason. Any reason. They're not sending them home. They're not suspending them. The kids are pretty much wilding out in class, but there's no consequences for it. The kids are not receiving proper structure and instruction at home, so that's also feeding the problem. And the teachers don't have the the term that I've come to hate, tools in their toolbox, tools in their toolboxes to work with these difficult students. Teachers are expected to be able to maintain classroom management when kids are bent on behaving in a lawless fashion, but there's no consequence for their behavior. There's no consequence if they strike a teacher. There's no consequence for disrupting instruction. There's no consequence for assaulting each other or another teacher. So it's just a free for all on a lot of campuses. I don't think people really, at least as it relates to the schools I'm aware of, I don't think people realize just how wild it has gotten. I know teachers who are hanging up their hats this year. They are so done. They the districts are putting out $60,000 a year to start, 60 some odd $1,000 a year. What district can beat that? This district is beating that. Some teachers are just like, I don't even care. You can give me $100,000 a year and I'm not staying here. So I think that the foundational lawlessness has created a culture where kids know that they can go to school and do what they want to do without ever having to answer for it. And there's no consequence at home. There's no consequence at school. So, yeah.
What happened to absolutes, Dr. Sanders?
Depends on what absolutes that you're talking about. Absolutes in the sense of some things are absolutely right and some things are absolutely wrong. I
Yeah.
think that train left the station quite a while ago, because there doesn't seem to be any absolutes anymore. There are certain things that should be deal breakers for all people at all times, regardless of the situation, such as assaulting someone. In a school setting, teachers should not have to be fearful of being assaulted. Students should not have to be fearful of being assaulted. There are just certain things that should not be. But in the school setting, at least the school settings I'm familiar with, goes on every day. And then there's the sick twist that I'm hearing more about is teachers who go to defend themselves, even if it's just a push to get a kid off of them, could end up in handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not looking at, wow, this teacher's trying to stay alive to go home. This teacher's trying not to be injured.
Right.
And maybe you have to push somebody to get them off of you. Yeah, now you're going to need an attorney to clear your name, clear your license, and hopefully be able to work again. Because you hear about the arrests when people have to turn themselves in. You hear about the injury to a child, but when that's dropped or beaten, nobody circles back to that story and says, hey, by the way, Mr. Jones, who was accused of this back in February, was acquitted or exonerated or was found not guilty of these charges. Nobody ever goes back to say that. You don't get the news story that cleared him.
You're
All
right.
you get, or her, all you get is what happened, and then the horrible arrest, and he turned himself in. And there are no absolutes anymore, George. I mean, absolute what? Absolute chaos. There's that. There's absolute foolishness. There's that. But there is no absolute as far as right, wrong, acceptable, unacceptable. that train has left the station.
You said something very interesting just a little while ago. Most people in these school districts have no clue, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, uh, have no clue of, of what actually goes on in school. Uh,
No, no. Mm-mm. Education stakeholders do not really know how bad it is in some schools. It's it's so bad that I would think that if people really knew, there's no way that they'd send their kids there, but they don't know. I've spoken to a few different parents, and they were telling me about they're so glad that their kids' grades are doing well. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, boy, those grades don't mean anything.
right, right.
Means nothing. Their grades mean nothing. And I feel like I've said that until I'm just blue in the face, and people still, they're holding tight to the mirage that is public education.
Mm. Ed?
Yeah, one of the problems that even we have at the private Christian school is substitutes, whether it's for teachers or bus drivers, or they can't get enough. And what ends up happening is you have to have teachers getting overwhelmed because they have to cover other teachers' classes, and so they don't get a planning period. They're obviously
Mm-hmm.
stressed out. Covering other people's classes is a real difficult task because you don't know the students' names. The kids aren't going to have the same respect for you like they would their regular teacher. Obviously,
Correct.
it's just a real nightmare. And then you couple that with, in particular, at the public schools, they get 15. Uh, they get 15 sick days. They get 5 personal days, so that they could take 15, 20 days off a year if they wanted to. And you think about the shortage of subs, and then the morale of the teachers because of having to keep covering. So then it's just a vicious cycle. Think,
Yeah.
what do you think the solution's going to be, Doctor?
My thought about that is self-preservation. Get out, because the system's not going to get any better. That I firmly hold the position. Public education is not going to get any better. It's not going to be more calm. It's not going to be more controlled. It's not going to be more successful in academics or social training or preparation for adult life. It's not going to be any better. So there comes a time when educators have to make a decision for themselves. I think it's fine if you want to stay in public education. If that's what you choose to do, or maybe that's what you're called to do, then do it. But do it understanding that it is what it is, and it's not going to get any better than that. So just stay with the right mindset, understanding that this is what it is. What will I do to take care of myself and to take care of my students while I'm here? Because it's not going to get any better.
Cassandra wrote, I know of a teacher that worked at the school here who smoked dope with some of the children. And I'm as shocking as that is, it's not shocking. Does that make sense?
It's really, I mean, doesn't really surprise me. It's sad, but there are some schools that are like in our largest district in Dallas. There's some schools that I wouldn't be surprised that wasn't going on. I've never seen it. I don't know anyone who's done it, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I've heard stories where certain people were involved in, like, maybe marijuana sales, um, like with the kids, snack sales with the kids. So perhaps an adult would give kids a duffel bag full of snacks. The kids would sell them, and then they'd report back to that adult with the money and keep a portion of it for themselves. You look at it like, okay, so what? It's just snacks. No, it's exploitation, is what that is.
Yeah.
it is an abuse of the teacher-student relationship. We're not at school to make money off of snacks
Right.
that we sell to the kids. Now, if the kids are enterprising enough and they want to do that amongst each other, I honestly have no, hey, whatever, make your money. Snacks, not pot or anything else, just snacks, cakes and cookies and stuff. But I know of one situation where an adult colluded with a student to sell snacks to all the students. Ridiculous.
Hmm.
There is nothing redeeming at this time about public education. Nothing. And I challenge the listeners, you, George, you, Ed, if you can tell me something that public education is doing right, I'll acknowledge it. I'll say, yeah, you know what? You're right. You're right. They are doing that right. I'll say it. Please tell me, what is public education doing right?
I'll tell you what
Anybody?
they're doing right. Yeah, I'll tell you. They are doing a great job of getting levies to get increases in the amount of money that they get taxpayers to pay.
Kaboom. Yeah. Now, it doesn't help the students any, doesn't help the teachers any, but they're able to get their agendas met. Public education is a very big, broad ATM machine. That is what it is.
Yep.
You know, in 2017, the National Education Association printed out, it was just somebody posted it on Twitter, but they 2017, they had a publication that they talked about who the union was going to defend, and then they put one exception. They said they would defend every group of people. They mentioned every religion, every type of person, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But they said there's one group they wouldn't defend. You want to guess what that group was? Well, I said every religion, but there's one exception.
Christians.
Yeah, Christians are the only group they refuse to defend. That tells you about everything you need to know about the NEA.
And they put that in writing?
Yeah, they have it in writing. I don't have it with me, but it is. I printed about 10 copies and passed them out to people at school. But yeah, 2017, they put it in writing, and they put in parentheses, the exception is Christian. Anyone that's a Christian, that they're not part of the protected group for the National Education Association, which between them and the American, the Federation of Teachers Association. Those two unions are the two biggest funders of the Democrat Party.
Right.
And so the fact that I've not seen that, but just going on what you're telling me, the fact that you've seen that, it's out there, that means just like you saw it, other people could have seen that or should have seen that or have access to see it just like you do. But when you don't read, you don't research, you listen to the propaganda that this agency or that continues to spill out, that's how you miss stuff like that. I'm going to use some of the core values of the Black Lives Matter movement. On the surface, it's like, okay, great. I see what you guys are trying to do. Okay, that's good stuff. But then when you unroll that cinnamon roll and you look at the information on their own website,
yeah,
and you read it, and it collides with what you believe as a human being or as a Christian or as a mom or a dad or whatever, then you have a decision to make. Do I continue to back this organization that flies in the face of my core beliefs? Or do I acknowledge that this really is what this is and take a step back or walk away? So just like with the union information that you just shared, Ed, That's what the problem is with so many organizations, and that's why I don't team with organizations. No organization represents me. I represent me. I don't speak for anybody else. I just speak for myself. I don't need a spokesperson. But when we refuse to pull the layers of that onion back and look at the core,
Yeah, that's it.
that's how that kind of stuff continues just to blossom when the information is right there for you to see, such as the failure statistics and the literacy statistics that the Department of Education provides. It's on the website. The failure, the illiteracy, the poor math and science performances, all of that information is a simple Google search. But
Yep.
nobody goes to look for it. Nobody goes to see it. Nobody
Can you talk?
wants to see it.
Can you talk about why Safari Schools does not want to take government money?
Yeah, so the school I developed is Safari Small Schools. It's a micro school, and it serves students pre-K through third grade here in Canton, Texas. And so our operation is small but mighty. And I've had I serve a maximum of 5 kids. I have one right now. The highest I got to was 4. Um, I I run solely off of parents paying tuition because I don't want the government to be able to tell me anything about how I run my school. I don't need the layers and layers of bureaucracy to ensure that my students learn. I don't need an IEP to differentiate instruction and to teach a child the way he or she learns. I don't need to be made to do that. I don't want the government telling me what I can do, what I can't do, how I have to do it. These are the times, this many minutes, because that system doesn't work. But if you check out our Safari Small Schools on Twitter and especially on the Facebook page and Instagram, you'll be able to see the results of what can happen when you just leave the government out of it. Why don't I have 15 students? Because I can serve 5 well. That's why. I can serve 5 well. I don't want to serve 10 okay. I would rather serve 5 well.
Hmm.
And because I focus on kids who have the behaviors pre-K through third grade, when they have behaviors, they're not learning in class. But when you're meeting their needs academically, 85-90% of that behavior corrects itself. I work closely with their parents, giving them strategies to apply at home because we're not just trying to get the kid to learn here at school, but we want them to get better socially at school and at home. This is not about just getting through the day. This is about getting this kid ready to live as a young adult in life. And so I don't need the government to tell me how to do that.
Dr. Sanders, when you interview mom, dad, the child that may be coming to your school,
Mhm.
By watching little people, I call them little people. I got 11,
Mhm.
11 grandkids where they're all getting big now, but watching my 4 and all these grandkids grow up, you learn a lot from little people. They are some smart people.
Very, very,
And
very.
I picture their I'll use an Espenlaub term. I picture their little brain housing group. Inside of that housing is a sponge,
Mhm.
and it just wants to soak up and absorb uh, everything and anything. And of course, they do, whether it's
Mhm.
good or whether it's bad, they absorb
Yeah.
it. So when you interview someone, do you find that there are times that number one, the little person or the little persons, they're ready to go,
Mhm.
but mom and dad are kind of like, disqualified for whatever reason. Do you ever run into those situations?
Yes, and it's usually after I've signed them up. It's a lot of times I've noticed that when people come to me, they're at their wits' end and they're like, I need help with this kid. And so I do meet with my parents and the child before I consider enrolling them. The enrolling process is the pages are 30 pages. Now, they're not completely full pages, but I touch on certain things and I have parents initial because I lay out the rules up front. It doesn't seem to fail. There's always a time that I end up bumping heads with parents because they've forgotten the rules. And I have to remind them that when you signed up, you agreed to this. And so if I see something that's detrimental to your child's social or academic growth, I have the right to say something to you because in schools, they don't have that right. You don't have to take my suggestions. You don't have to agree with what I say. But if I say to you that it's really important for you to help this child get their practice work, their homework done at night because it's going to help them build their skills, I don't want to keep hearing excuses of why it's not done. It is a privilege to attend Safari Small Schools. Now, if you're ready for your child to grow out of this foolishness, we also have to address the adult foolishness that's feeding this behavior. Because, George, in all my years of being a teacher, a behavior teacher, I have not ever met a kid diagnosed with ED who had stable parents. There was always one or both that are off kilter. Never have I ever met a student. I've never met a parent of a student who had profoundly poor behavior that was not related to a medical condition or um, a developmental condition or head trauma. Never have I met one where the parenting was solid. Never. And that's why I don't like the diagnosis of ED, of emotional disturbance, because the one thing that it will not consider, that it doesn't take into consideration, is the parenting. Because parents can tell you anything.
Yeah.
And so this kid now has a label when actually the parents have laid down on the job.
Yeah.
So yeah, the students are usually like great. It's the parents that can make it difficult.
So those little sponges, they learn what they hear, what they see
Mm-hmm.
at home. That is enacted outside the home,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's taken to wherever, school, the playground, on the ball field, whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
and so it's so important for parents to understand that uh, my grandmother used to say, little pitchers have big ears. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but we were always taught that when the adults sit down at the table, if someone would come to visit, you skedaddled.
Mm-hmm.
Go outside or go in another room,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to sit here and listen to the big people
Yeah,
talk.
exactly. Go
And
play, go do something.
yeah, sometimes you'd want to get a little squirrely and try to tip your ear around the corner because their voices got a little bit lower, so you knew they was talking about something else. And you
Yeah.
try to put your ear around the corner. Somebody will always catch you. But Grandma used to say, "Little pitchers," that little guy has big ears. Little pitchers have big ears and they can hear. So be careful what you say around those little people, lest they carry what you said to somewhere else that you don't want it to be said. Uh,
Exactly.
so the little sponges are soaking it up left and right. So, Edward,
So, do you have plans to expand Safari schools?
Yes, I do. The ultimate goal is to have a campus. I want teachers to be able to open their own programs, just like I opened mine. And I will actually be offering workshops to walk them through how I did it. I'm not saying that my way is the only way, but this is what worked for me. And what I would like for is teachers, wherever their niche strength is, to be able to open their own small school and focus on that niche and the population they choose to work with. Because when you're forced to work with students who perhaps their needs are outside of your scope, or perhaps uh, the student's conduct is more than you care to deal with, when you have your own program, you don't have to deal with that. And I want all teachers who are interested in opening their own schools to be able to do that. And that's how I would like to see Safari Small Schools expand. Several in the same town, state, across the nation, serving just a variety of different ages and niches: sports, STEM, music, vocation, whatever somebody is good at and they want to teach, let them teach the grades that they want to teach. Let them teach the content that they want to teach, and run their schools the way that works for them. That's what I want to see.
I'll put this phone number up if that's all right,
Hmm.
Dr. Sanders,
Absolutely.
and we'll run it across the bottom of the screen, and I'll put the Safari website up there. Uh,
Thank you.
can people outside of Texas get interested in this? I mean, is
They're
it
welcome to. They're welcome to. And as it relates to, I mean, I will help anybody. I'll train anybody the way I did it. But of course, outside of Texas, what they're going to have to do is know what their state's regulations are, and I can tell them where to go get that information. But I'm familiar with what goes on in Texas, what's allowed in Texas, the Texas rules. But if everybody can do it, as long as they know what the rules in their states are and they follow those rules, I would highly encourage to keep people to keep the government out. And in fact, if it's a Safari Small Schools, the government must be kept out. They
oh,
absolutely have to be kept out.
Ed?
Well, how much does it cost? I'm sure somebody wants to know.
Well, it's kind of hard to determine. So for me, I started, I mean, I can't really say what my startup costs were, because as a teacher, I had all the materials and all that. I'm working out of my home, although I do have a second house on my property here that's right now being retrofitted. It's being rehabbed into the actual school building. But the cost would be, do you have a place to do this? Can you do this out of your own home? Then you've eliminated the cost. But do you have to rent a place? Um, do you have, you would need to do a needs assessment to find out how much interest do you have, so you can kind of gauge what kind of money you could make to determine how much it would cost for you to get started. But I mean, teachers who already have their niche materials, that's already taken care of there. If they have a place where they can do this, like out of their own home, that's already taken care of. So there's not necessarily a lot of startup costs. The furniture that you need and all that, you can start off getting used. Get on eBay, Facebook Marketplace for your materials and curriculum and those types of things. So it can be done. Um, how much it's going to cost, I guess, could depend on the teacher and how much they want, how much outlay that they want. If you have the money and you want to, rent a really nice place and, buy the top curriculum in your niche area, by all means do it. Me, I'm a penny pincher. I had pretty much everything that I needed. I have a large enough house to do it, and then I have a whole 1,000 square foot house right here behind my house. That's going to be a perfect schoolhouse. So, it's definitely something that can be done without taking out loans and that type of thing, unless you need to pay for real estate or something.
Does the local school district bother you at all?
No, not at all.
Nor the
Mm-mm.
state? The state doesn't?
Nope.
Nope.
Mm-mm. In Texas, I fall under homeschool rules. I just hold myself to a higher standard so parents can see what they're. I follow the same state standards, but I can exceed them because I have a small group. And so I'm able to, the same standards that the kids in school are following, I can also follow. And I do. But if you'll look on my website and you see what my kids can do, look at what my current 4 year old is doing. There is no kindergarten class that's doing what he's doing, and he's 4.
So you have from what, K through third.
Mm-hmm.
What hap-
Pre-K through third.
What happens after that?
My hope and dream and goal is that there will be a Safari Small Schools for them to transition to, for someone who wants to take fourth, fifth, sixth, maybe somebody who wants to open a primary campus with that age kids. That's my goal. I want someone to be able to pass them off to. So far, all the kids that I've had have transitioned back into public schools. Their conduct is much better. I know one is still kind of struggling, but their conduct is better. The one who's kind of struggling still, his academics are off the charts, so he'll never have any academic issues in kinder, first, second, third. He won't have any of those because he's way past that. But they're doing better. I don't want them to transition out. But sometimes money is an issue for families, and for whatever reasons, they may have to make the decision to pull their kid out and return to school. And if they do, I arm them with information, know what you're getting into, know what your kid is able to do, know what your child is doing. Because at Safari Small Schools, the parents are so ingrained in what we're doing. The parents always know what their children can do. They know what their and they sign off on it here, and then we will master a concept after the student has demonstrated to their parents, yes, okay, I agree, she knows how to do this just fine. I put the work samples away and we move on to the next standard.
Do you do you
Mm-hmm.
do you personally, when someone comes from pre-K to third and then they transition back to public school, do you personally have any fear, trepidation about them leaving and going back?
Yes, and I tell the parents that, but and that's something the parents and I, we talk about that from day one all the way through. They already know my thoughts on it, but people need to do what they feel they need to do for their children. The reality is free is always better than paying. And when you can save money by sending them to school, that's close to their home, or it doesn't cost anything, it's easy to make that decision for some people because, yeah, we're struggling financially here and we can cut that and then he can go to school here. Okay, well, if I mean, when you've been told, then the responsibility is on you. And I don't fault any parent for having to do that. I want my parents to do what they feel is right for their children. And if that's what you need to do, then by all means do it. And if you have any questions, call me.
Dr. Sanders, I want to I want to inject this right here. Uh, your dream is to have someone that you can hand them off to.
Hmm.
So when they transition from you to someone else, they're still in good hands.
Yes, that's
No,
what I want.
ladies and gentlemen, this is not an Allstate commercial. You're in good hands with Allstate. But
Yes,
when they transition from you to the next person, they're in good hands.
that's what I want.
I want to inject this to our viewers that might be watching now, that people that will be watching later. When we put this up on the radio, people that will hear it. I want you to do something. We need prayer warriors. I'm serious now. We need prayer warriors. We need men and women, boys and girls, that know that Christ is the answer,
Yes.
that God is the problem solver, and that he can make ways where there seems to be no ways.
Yes, he
This
can.
is what I want us to do. I want us to unite together. And I want us to pray for Dr. Sanders and her
Thank
family
you.
that
Thank you.
God will make a way that this will work, that this will happen, that it'll
Yes.
come to pass, that when she reaches that third grade, she'll have a place to hand them off to, that they'll be in just as good hands as they were in hers.
Yes.
And I encourage you, please grip the horns of the altar. I'm not embarrassed to ask you or embarrassed to say these things by no means. God is high and lifted up.
Yes.
And I believe if we unite together and pray, God will answer our prayers and he will work through Dr. Sanders and he'll get the glory and the honor and the praise.
Yes. I appreciate that. I will accept all prayer because that's the vision. So
And without a vision, the people perish. That's what the word of God says.
the
So,
people perish. We have to have a place, and certainly it won't be just Safari Small Schools, but we have to have a place, an alternative for families who, like me, don't want any part of the public school disaster. We want our kids out. We don't want our kids to be forced to learn about this or that and all the social madness that's going on. Can we ensure that kids can read, write, think, reason? Here's a thought. God does stay in schools at Safari Small Schools. I don't care about social agendas. What I care about is good conduct, literacy, math literacy, and what kind of human being is this child going to be when that child grows up.
right.
That's it. I don't care about any of the rest of it. I just don't. But give me this child who has conduct issues, who has behavior issues. Give me this child. Work with me, and this child's going to improve.
Wow.
That's
Ed,
it. Just work with me. I can't do it myself, but work with me, that child's going to improve.
Ed, you've been driving for so long. You're almost to Delaware, aren't you?
I'm actually, yeah, we live in Mount Gilead, so I'm probably about, I don't know, 5 minutes away.
I thought
Now
you
I was, it's been about an hour drive, so
I thought you might be up here in Seaford. That's only 7 miles from me. I'm getting ready to come out and meet you on the street.
nah, one day, George, one day.
Go ahead and I didn't mean to interrupt your thought there, but go ahead.
You talking about me, George?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I was actually, what, if you had to compare, let's say you say Johnny's going to your school and the same Johnny's, he's got a twin that's 100% identical. Johnny, and they've grown up together.
I can't hear you, Ed.
No,
Something has happened.
Ed froze up.
Oh no.
Oh, I'm back.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
start over. We got two Johnnies.
Okay. So two Johnnies. One Johnny goes to Safari schools, and the other Johnny goes to the public school. What's gonna be the difference in their outcomes?
Oh man. Okay. So there'll be several. If okay, so if they're at Safari Small Schools, let's take kindergarten. Just kindergarten. My 4-year-olds, the one, especially the one that I have now, he'll if he goes, we call it to big school, excuse me, big school. He's already ahead academically. He will everything that they'll be presenting to him, he'll already have that. My current 4-year-old can look at the map. He's almost mastered all the states west of the Mississippi on the white side of the map. I know adults who can't do that, but he can. He doesn't need to know that, but he does.
Mm.
And so why just stop at A says ah and B says buh when he can know all the states west of the Mississippi? Why not?
Right. Right.
And he's blowing it out the water. Despite behavior, despite being just 4. So my kids, their conduct will be better. And I can't control what happens at home, but they will know the difference between right and wrong. They will have a concept of who God is and who God is to them, and that God has a purpose for their lives. They'll know that. They will have an immediate understanding of right and wrong and how to treat people and how to not bully people. And again, you can't stop a kid from doing whatever he's going to do or she's going to do, but it's not like they won't know. They will know. And they will have a breadth of knowledge in so many. We're making hydroponic gardens out of water bottles starting Monday. I mean, he's 4. Why does he need to know that? Why not?
All right. Good point. And here's the thing. One thing I don't want to gloss over. I think the most important thing you said was that they are going to learn about God. And the thing about that is, when you learn at the public school, they teach that the book of Genesis, they teach it in the Greek mythology unit. When you learn in school that 25% of the standards are going to say that you are just an accident, it makes a big difference in the child's mentality.
Yeah. And it's like the first thing that they learn coming in new is the creation story. And they learn it on a 4-year-old or 5-year-old or whatever age they are level. You don't have to make it college, level teaching with maps and timetables on the wall. It's just basic stuff. Like, wow. So the flowers and the trees and the mountains, where did all that come from? Where did we come from? Really? Oh my goodness, we were created. It's not like it has to be, well, no, here it is. Did you know that the trees and everything beautiful comes from God? Wow, why do you think the birds eat the worms and then the insects do this and that? God made everything work together. Simple. The kids love the Bible stuff. They love it. Then they go home and they tell the parents about it, which is totally cool. And then the parents tell me, I was like, oh my goodness, he told me about such and such and such and such. Yeah. So that is a curriculum that it wasn't expensive. It was just the children's Bible, and then it has videos that go with it. And then you can also get videos on YouTube and stuff. The kids love that stuff. Love it.
Wow. There we go again. Time just goes. It goes.
Yeah, it does.
Every time it just goes.
Yeah.
I think we hit a lot of nails on the head tonight. I think we zeroed in and centered in on some key issues. I just think we did what the Lord had us to do tonight. I really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing was rehearsed. Nothing was planned.
Mm-mm.
I think we just led to do what we did, and here we are. We're almost done. Wow, that was a mouthful. But anyhow, if you can understand that, ladies and gentlemen, you have bigger problems than I do. But anyhow, Dr. Sanders, thank you so much one more time.
My pleasure, as always. I'd love to come back anytime.
Oh, we're going to have you back again. It'll be part 4.
Absolutely. And Ed, I'm glad to see you too, man.
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to see you as well.
Thank you.
Old Ed, we're liable to get him anywhere. I mean, he's in the car, at the house, and yeah, he's on the road again tonight. He's on his way home. Uh, there is the website address on the bottom of the screen, and Dr. Sanders' phone number is floating across the bottom.
Absolutely. Feel free to call me.
Yeah, jot that down. If you just have a question,
Mm-hmm.
just give her a buzz, and
Absolutely.
that might lead to some more questions. And if nothing else, let me tell you something. You will have a wonderful conversation with this wonderful lady.
Thank you.
And
Yes, folks, ask any questions you want, anything about school, your kids, things that you have questions about. Hey, don't hesitate. Shoot me a text or give me a call, and anything I can do to help, I will. That's what I do, George. I just give information, and it's up to you to do whatever you want to do with that information. But I'm going to tell you the truth, and the truth isn't real popular right now. But I don't know.
yeah, but the truth will set you free. That's
Yes, it
what
will.
I'm for. So
Yes, it will. Yeah, and the truth doesn't need to be defended. And so, therefore, hey, it is what it is. I've had people come for me. You just yeah, but still the truth. I don't know what I don't know what to tell you. I mean, what do you want? So if you're good with your kids staying in the system, totally fine. Hey, no judgment.
Yep.
But don't come for me for telling the truth.
Right.
So anyway, so I think that that's what God wants. And I think that it's time for people to get their kids out. I think it's way worse than even we know. And I hope that people do read the handwriting on the wall, get the kids out of there.
Amen. Ed, in closing.
I would say, I tell you what, I think you're exactly right. I think the time is right. The movement is really picking up steam. It's time to get those kids out of the government schools,
Get them out.
and the micro schools, in particular Christian micro schools, are an
Yes.
excellent, outstanding option.
Yes. And more people are doing it. It might be flying under the radar, but you can check out what's going on in your communities and ask questions. Put some together, don't wait for someone to put it together. If you don't have one in your area, put one together in your area.
Amen.
Yeah, and I'm happy to help. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in. Whether you were down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you. And do this. Look somebody in the eye and say, I love you. It could
yeah,
make a difference. It
big difference.
could even save a life. Until later, goodbye, everybody.